Hello and welcome back to Preds Power here on a Saturday afternoon, a gloomy Saturday afternoon in all of Tennessee because we span the whole state here on this very program, Bryan Bastin, because we got Nashville covered, we got Knoxville covered. You've got the full-on Tennessee look, Vol Navy, Tennessee hat. You came prepared today.
Yeah, and actually, I will say I was looking at the hats. I was like, I've got a bunch. I should probably wear them. We're different ones, and I almost was like, depending on how I feel about Chase today, I was gonna wear the Braves hat from the one Braves game I've ever been to. So,
I mean, you said you've only been to one Braves game ever.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember who was playing and what year?
Oh my God, it was. Let's see it. I mean, like I did it because I was killing time before I went to see Kendrick Lamar. So, maybe 2016, I think, something like that. I think they played the Capitals, maybe not Capitals, Nationals.
Okay, there you go.
Hockey has permanently just altered my brain now. So
hey, that's part of the deal. But you gotta, I love your setup. The office setup when we move and buy a house this summer. I'm really excited to actually build an office around my video pod because I have had to do a makeshift thing here. It would have required me to tear apart this house or this room and start over, and I'm like, I don't want to do that if I'm leaving. So this is the make do. I got my little posters by me, but it'll be a whole lot of other stuff after that. But it'll be good.
Yeah, it's one of those days outside too. I mean, I finally understand, growing up, like I feel like the appropriate thing for me to do after I do this is to go sit out on the couch, put on golf or baseball, and just pass out and watch none of it. Like, I think I finally understand why that's like a dad thing to do.
Yes, it's after a long week of work and everything else, you just want to be a vegetable. But I got to go get a new phone. Actually, because my phone is dying and like it's barely lasting. I've had like I hate that we're in this cycle, right? Where I think Apple, they just know they have you, so it's like we'll just have your phone self-destruct like as the years go on, so you have to keep getting new ones every 3 to 4 years. But I've gone as long as I can. I'm at 4.5. I have this line down the middle of it, and I've made way like I've had that for like 4 months. I've gotten used to that.
We all go through that period of like, I'm just gonna hold out.
Yes,
like, maybe it's gonna be 1 month, and then you're like, oh, it's been a year, and like, you hand someone your phone, like, oh no, you have to hold your finger right there just to make sure that button stays pressed, otherwise it turns off.
Stuff that's like where I'm at. So it's probably, but I'm so nervous about losing all my awesome photos and my contacts. So I'm always like paranoid that I have to start over because that would really suck.
I will say this. Like, it is nice that a lot of my stuff gets backed up on my Google phone, but there is something freeing about just having a brand new phone with none of your old crap on it. I mean,
that's
like,
true.
I really want to save my
wife and our dog, and like, I don't want to lose those.
Well, get it backed up, dude.
Nah,
there's no one to blame but yourself for that one.
That's true. Well, it's not. Well, it happened to my wife like 4 or 5 years ago. They said they had backed it all up and they messed up and it did not get backed up. So she lost a lot of stuff after, because like once they wipe it, it's wiped. It's a goner. So I don't know. I'm just always terrified of leaving it to like some sophomore at Pellissippi doing it.
I trust them more than I trust myself at this point, though.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Well, this is ostensibly a Nashville Predators podcast. Bryan Bastin of ontheforecheck.com. Go subscribe to ontheforecheck.com if you have not already done so. New content each and every day to keep you informed on what's going on in the NHL playoffs, all that good stuff. What's going on with the Preds, what they're going to do with their picks, who's going to be coaching the Preds, all that and more covered on the daily over on ontheforecheck.com. Go subscribe there. Renegades of Puck, as always. Shout out to Charlie and the friends over there. Go subscribe to their YouTube channel as they keep putting out the content. A lot of good season review pods over the last couple weeks for Charlie and company. So go check that out. Brian's still doing his stat of the night for the Admirals playoff run here. So you can always see Brian on that feed as well. Let's start, Bryan, when it comes to the Nashville Predators and what happened this particular season. I think this would be fun. We're going to get into some Milwaukee Admirals. We'll probably wrap with them and what's going on there. I want to first ask you, Tommy Novak, friend of the pod. We're a big fan of Tommy Novak on this one. I want to start with our season review series with him. what did you see out of Tommy Novak? Does he forecast as a long-term star potentially for the Preds? What did you see about Novak that you liked? What surprised you, and what does he still need to work on going into next season?
Man, what we saw, and I think everybody saw plain as day, is that Tommy Novak is a legitimate NHL player. I think this is a guy who has been very consistent in his time with the Predators. I think this season he played 51 games with Preds, which, I mean, considering the roster turnover and everything like that, for him to be consistently in the lineup is impressive in itself. But then, he came out of this season with 17 goals and 43 points, which not many people would have predicted that. I mean, like, even people who really liked him, like, probably not thinking like a 40-point season for a guy like that. But I mean, he's 25 years old, former 3rd-round pick. I mean, he has been consistent. He has been excellent with Milwaukee in his time with Milwaukee. I mean, they'd absolutely love him right now in the playoffs, but unfortunately he's played too much NHL hockey now for him to be there. So, this comes after last season where he came in. He had a solid end of the previous season, 27 games, 1 goal and 7 points. But he was, making an impact, and it was really positive. But, he's backing up to his numbers too with his play. I mean, we've seen, the line of him and Sherwood and Evangelista, which has been crazy, and that those two have continued to go crazy in Milwaukee. But I mean, he's backed it up. I mean, I think the only knock on a guy like this is that he's not much in the way. He doesn't offer much in the way of defense, which is fine. I think he plays a lot of real fast, like forecheck heavy, where he's trying to create turnovers. I mean, he's doing what John Hines really wants them to do. And if you watch, Carl Taylor kind of has a lot of the same philosophy. I mean, if you looked at last night, the Admirals were succeeding the most when they were pressing hard and denying them even to exit their own zone. So it's great. But I mean, analytically, I mean, Novak was fantastic. So you look again, we always turn to goals above replacement from Evolving Hockey. 5th on the team overall in goals above replacement. The people above him, Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, Cody Glass, and Matt Duchene. So as for even strength 5-on-5 offense, 3rd on the team behind Matt Duchene and Roman Josi. So, I mean, on the power play, he was the most valuable player on the power play for Nashville last season by, more than double the next highest, who was Roman Josi. So this is a guy who is doing everything. He's obviously got to work some things out with his game. Obviously, they'd like him to be a much better two-way player. I mean, his defensive component of that goals above replacement, he is the worst defensive player on the team. So not great, but at least he is backing it up with the 3rd highest offensive creation, plus an amazing value to the power play. Gosh. So I mean, this is a guy really, I have no complaints about it. I mean, he's somebody who they took their time with him. They were patient. He has been incredibly successful in the AHL as well. So yeah, he's been a great person to build around with these guys, as the Admirals were kind of made their way into the NHL this season. And, again, I fully expect him to probably never put on a Milwaukee jersey again, unless it's a conditioning stint, because I think he's going to be somebody that the Preds, they'll probably keep him there, and they'll probably give him another 1 or 2 year contract, I imagine, and keep him around like that to see, how he develops. But he probably could develop into something really special.
Yeah, and that's huge. And what I think Preds fans are going to latch onto him and Evangelista a lot over the next couple of years. I think they're going to be 2 fan favorites, and just kind of like when the losing, potentially, if there is a lot of losing, there could be a lot of fun with the Novak and Evangelista and what they can become over the next couple of years. And there's no pressure, which is huge for guys like that, where, hey, you're fully transitioning out of the AHL. Like, you don't have to be a star. You don't have to do this, that, and the other to keep this team in the playoff chase. And I think fans will be very comfortable waiting and just letting them work through, just being a young player in the NHL. I think they'll be fine with that. So it's good vibes all around when it comes to Tommy Novak. However, on the flippity flop here, Bryan Bastin, he has been kind of a target on this podcast, both from Bryan Bastin himself and our friend Jeff Middleton as well, because Cole Smith has had an up and down year in Nashville. Based on the totality of his season, Bryan, how would you surmise Cole Smith in Nashville?
So yeah, I mean it is fun to come back to this after it seems like about a couple months of not having to talk about it. But it's he played 69 nice games for the Predators. I'm trying to entertain myself talking about Cole Smith. He played 69 games with Nashville, 4 goals, 17 points. 14 out of those 17 were primary points, which is good. I mean, he was excellent. Excellent penalty killer. I mean, there's no denying his value there. But other than that, his metrics were pretty much replacement level. I mean, he defensively is just above average. Penalty killing was obviously a strength of his, but offensively, it's just not doing too much. And it's something that you see this guy consistently in and out in the lineup but you're watching Tomasino and people like that getting scratch after being called up for a few games. He's just the very definition of he's going to be there. He's a good, he's a guy you can stick on your third line, even though he got first line time sometimes this season. And I'm not going to say that I'm a huge fan of his necessarily. I don't think he's as bad as most people seem to put him, just because he's mistakes that anybody was making on this team, especially defensively, you kind of get numb to it, but it wasn't egregious. I think his biggest problem was not being one of the other players that wasn't getting played. And I think that's kind of what drove a lot of the perception of him, because looking at people, he's ranked ahead 2 spots or so below him in goals above replacement are Dante Fabro, Ryan Johansson, Yakov Trenin, Tanner Jeannot, Kevin Gravel, Mikael Granlund, Jeremy Lauzon. So that's kind of it when you're looking at that, and you kind of see the company he's keeping as far as analytics wise, and then you look at his stats and it's and the eye test is just kind of the criticism that he gets is, yes, he should be getting criticism for his game and the decisions to play him, but there are guys that didn't have that, had slightly worse years than him. Nobody talks about the value of a guy like Yakov Trenin, who is, exciting. He's a playmaker. He's a guy who's always, delivering hits. He's not the one that's going to score a bunch of goals for you. And even though analytically he's not grading out very well, this is also a lot, comparing him to a lot of the guys that were also, kind of career AHLers that moved up, Yakov Trenin, Jeannot, Gravel, guys like that. You don't expect it from guys like Granlund and Lauzon, but it's fine. It's not egregious. He's not, if there's somebody that really, again, like if there's a player that's really sticking out where like they are just kind of, there's a big gap between, everybody else and on a bad team and then this one person just doing really bad. That's obviously something that's a little bit more, it's how Mikael Granlund was this season. Just Mikael Granlund, no matter what he did, he just could not get it together. And, it didn't seem like it went too well over for Pittsburgh either, but unfortunately for Granlund, because I always liked him, but just a bad season overall. And that's kind of the one where if anybody kind of deserved that level of ire from the fans, because really, fans really shouldn't be getting that upset about who's playing on the third line wing. Like it shouldn't be that huge of a deal, but he was keeping Tomasino out of the lineup. He's keeping other guys that deservedly showed that they should be in the lineup. And, that's where a lot of it comes. So it wasn't a great year. I don't know. I want to say that I don't think he'll play that many games next season again, but they just gave him a deal, so we'll see. The roster's going to be thin in a lot of spots, and that's just something that Nashville's probably going to have to get used to, is that they're going to have a lot of replacement level guys plugged in to patch up these spots in the line, because it's not going to be a complete team next season.
No, I don't think so. But still a lot. Speaking of not being complete, though, one of your dudes, Evan Rodrigues, last year, it's what we first were talking about here on this very program, Bryan. And I think this should be a yearly portion of the podcast. Of
course.
And we need to call it something like the Evan Rodrigues. I don't even know. Like, I got to think about this for a second. But just in terms of who is your Evan Rodrigues this cycle for the Preds? Who do you have circled that could be that under the radar, cheaper option, could fit, that other fans might not jump for joy over or might not move the needle, but they move the needle for you and you think they would be good for the Preds next season? Do you have your Evan Rodrigues crush going into next year?
Oh yeah. That's a good question. So there's a couple players out there that I think fit that mold really well. There's a guy this season. He's coming off of a 16 goal season and 40 points in 70 games, which is pretty impressive. This is his first year with his current team, the Colorado Avalanche, and he's due to become a free agent again. Real strong guy. Evan Rodrigues will also be available. Which I thought you were setting me up for that, but I was just like, you kept going, and I was like, oh, another guy, huh? Yeah, Evan Rodrigues again. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys, because again, it's going to be hard to kind of look and see players that, like, you can want a guy like, say the Tkachuk trade market was back out there again, which congratulations, Florida. Like, good move. Absolutely good move. I think even I said that I didn't think that Tkachuk was going to make Florida get to the Stanley Cup Finals on this very show. So that's my bad. That's my bad, Matt. But yeah, I'm looking at all of the free agents. It's going to be weird to kind of slot in, because do you go for guys who are a guy like Rodrigues, 26 years old, 25 years old, kind of in that midpoint of his career? They're going to start wanting to look for a little bit longer term contracts. And if you've got that long term contract, if you want that, I don't know how well that matches up with what Nashville is going to look to fill that. Because if they're going to be giving longer contracts to, it's got to be players that are established, or high draft picks, things like that. And so you come into places like Jonathan Toews. Please, I hope not. Guys like that, Ryan O'Reilly. Like, in any other year, that might be something where you say that's like a legitimate. He's a guy that can come in, fill a spot, and then help your team get one step further in the playoffs. And that's not where Nashville is. There's a lot of, I'm trying to think of who, there's someone like David Severson in New Jersey. I don't know that he's going to, I don't know if Nashville would get in on that. I haven't heard anything about it, but he's had a pretty good year, and I've liked him for the past 2 or 3 years. And if Hines is still the coach, there would be some familiarity there. So I've always liked him. It's weird because look, I'm like, oh, Nashville is leaking defensemen now. Like, there's no longer like a big, like, the stocks are kind of empty. You look at Carrier, and Carrier is like your third best defenseman now.
Do you know who knows this really well?
Who's that?
UC Saros.
Absolutely, Chase. Yes, you're getting it, man. You're getting it.
He's like the Will Smith meme, where he's just the last one. He's looking around, just like it's just UC Saros back there. He's by himself.
Yeah, I mean, you start to look down the list of free agents and things like that, and then you start to go, okay, we look at those guys, the $4 or $5 million guys, someone like Severson or somebody like that. Eric Hall is a free agent. I don't think so. But then you have to go down and look at the guys who are getting, $1.5 million deals. You're the guys like your Nick Boninos, who's currently, him and Rocco Grimaldi, ironically, are tearing up at the World Championships right now for Team USA. Cody Glass as well is there for Team Canada, and he's doing all right. So, but you get guys like, you see Justin Braun, guys like that, Jack Johnson, please no, those are the ones where you're probably going to see as, the season starts, after the draft happens and there's trades with the draft, you're going to start to see those, those $1 or $2 million deals for like 1 year that come in, the kind that brought in Kevin Lankinen, those types of things, those prove it deals. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see where they go with it. But, as there's no indication on which direction Nashville's going to go. I just think, they're going to have to see, the free agent interest may not be that high for some guys. So,
but you have an opportunity. Like, if you're a defenseman and you're trying to I guess we'll also see who the coach is. Like, you don't even know what you're signing up for at this point. Like, it might not be John Hines. It might not be Carl Taylor. It might be one or the other. Like, it's just, I think that needs to get settled before you can really start figuring out what guys make sense, because we don't even know who's going to be coaching this team.
Yeah, and really under the radar one looking at this though is a guy who plays who's in the Dallas system, but he's right now obviously with Texas. Tanner Caro, who he's been really fun to watch for the Stars. I mean, he seems like in the last 2 games especially, he's been everywhere. On both sides of the ice, really causing some problems for Askarov. So he's another guy who's going to be, he'll be a free agent. Just like, I think he had like a $750,000 deal. So I think that would be one, because again, like I said, I think it was last show or which one when I said that like they'll probably make a bunch of signings or trades, but a lot of it's probably going to be depth and stuff from Milwaukee. That would be a guy definitely that I think, you know, he's got some upside. So it'd be interesting to see a guy like that, or Dylan Sakura over from Anaheim. But yeah, no, Evan Rodrigues is still my dude on that, just because, you know, he's there. Oh, and Freddie Gaudreau too as well. Ooh. If we want to go back to guys Bryan, you know, unabashedly loves, bring back Freddie Gaudreau. He's the one, which I don't know if you remember, but the big thing from Nashville when they went to the finals that year was that he had come up from Milwaukee, and, you know, through injury and everything else had ended up in the starting lineup, like top 6. You know, he had the goals and big magical run, and he didn't have a locker. And so there's that picture of it, like it's just a chair sitting there with all of his stuff folded over it and like his nameplate sitting above it. He's doing great. He's doing great stuff in Minnesota, which, now that I say that, he did sign an extension in Minnesota just like a couple weeks ago. See, now I'm sad, Chase. We're gonna may have to move subjects because now I'm sad.
Well, in happier news,
yeah,
we could do Milwaukee. Let's do Milwaukee. What's the latest on the Admirals? The double overtime loss in Game 4 last night. What's the latest with the Ads?
I really wish Jeff was here for this, because there's been a lot of discussion in Nashville this week about the Admirals, and it's not just because they're playing. It's Jeff himself, our boy, kind of set Nashville hockey Twitter aflame a few days ago when he noticed that, I guess for whatever reason, he was listening to a local radio host, who I won't mention because he doesn't deserve to be, you know, his name to be mentioned in this, talked about that they had broadcasted on 102.5 here in town. They gave the Admirals call for the 2 games. And so during Game 3, you know, Willie Donick, guys like that, they were all, you know, Pete Weber, they were enjoying the game, talking about it on Twitter, saying it was great to listen to it. I mean, Aaron Sims, who calls Admiral games, who's a really, really great guy and who's been super nice to me every time we've talked. He does a really, really great job. But this radio host, of course, had to bring up the fact that it is like, there's no reason that you should be watching AHL hockey right now, unless it's like you have like a huge star player, or for some reason otherwise you need to get a life. And, you know, this is a guy that is on the team's flagship station, that same flagship station that broadcasts the Admiral games. And of course, they got a lot of people fired up, and that the Admirals and the Preds both on Twitter have called him out a little bit on that one. But let me tell you, folks, like if it means watching AHL hockey right now means that you need to get a life, then like, yeah, I could have told you that for me, but I'm having a blast doing it. It's been really great. And the Admirals, because they can't make anything easy, took Game 4 in Texas. All they had to do was win one of the next 2 games, and they were on to the Western Conference Finals, which they haven't been to since 2005 when I graduated high school. So it's been a long time. All they do is win one, but the Stars took them to double overtime last night, well past my bedtime. And unfortunately,
I fell asleep at like 10:30 on the couch, Brian. It was
so it would have been it was I think it was just finishing up right about that time.
We're at that age, folks, where it just happens, where you don't even know. Like, I'm sitting up in a chair, Brian, and I'm just under my weighted blanket, and I fell asleep.
Like, I used to camp outside of Thompson Bowling.
Yeah,
Bruce Pearl. I'd go at like 9 o'clock at night and just stay up and do it.
I saw Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows, the midnight showing for the last one. I think I did a midnight showing for every single like, I think from Goblet on, I did the midnight showings for the first night, and I'm getting out at like 3, 4, and just taking a quick snooze and then going back to class or doing whatever, like going to school, like in high school, like starting at 7:30 in the morning, like just like it was no big deal. Those days are long gone. I couldn't even imagine, like, absolutely not anything out late. No, I'm out. I won't be awake. It's not happening.
Yeah. You know, now that I'm not up late because I've got, you know, a baby or something here. Now it's just like, you know, now I used to have to always do that. And like, as much as it was, you know, miserable at times, losing sleep, it was like, well, I also got a lot of Bryan stuff done during that time in the middle of the night. And hockey was, you know, that was the time. Like, the whole reason why I'm covering hockey is because I was just watching hockey and had nothing else to do when I was trying to rock a baby to sleep. And
isn't that funny? You just never know. Like, I'm assuming that was your oldest, right?
But but both really. I mean,
Yeah.
it's now the oldest is how I just started watching hockey,
Yeah.
getting into it. So
Does she
again,
know that you got that's how
oh yeah,
you got into
There's
hockey?
pictures of her. There's pictures of her throughout the whole process. You know, she did the learn to skate or learn to play with the Predators for a year.
Mm.
You know, we have pictures of her. I think with one of the very first pictures of me like doing anything Preds related was my first game, and her first game was the Future Stars game like 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Where Sammy Gerard, you know, stole my heart as like a awesome can't miss prospect, and he got traded away, and then you know has flourished with Colorado, obviously. But he's been there. I've got the picture. The first time I met any of the players, got a picture of her being like 3 years old with Philip Forsberg and UC Saros, and me in a bad knockoff Target jersey.
That's great.
It's really sad. It's really sad.
That's great.
But yeah, but the point being is that it is really cool. It does. But yeah, she knows. Like she knows that it's all her fault, you know, to borrow a phrase. But I did have to have that talk after the game about, you know, why it's okay to be mean to the players when you tell them you suck at games, which I think every little kid has to have that discussion where they're like, it's really fun to say, but are we being mean? I'm like, no, that's fine. They're making millions of dollars. Yeah, yes. Whatever you want.
Just there's a line, and you know what the line, like you have to have that conversation, but it's also just it's different with kids. Like I think we talked about that. Jeff had a crazy fan when he was at a Preds game as a fan a couple months ago, yeah. And you just see it like it just. I feel like it should be instinctual to know what the line is and know what you should and should not say to folks. And look, it's not like you shouldn't say anything because I think those people go way too far where it's like it just become like, well, no, part of the experience of being a fan and like me going to University of Tennessee sporting events here is that I can scream about the game and the dogs and that sort of thing and really get in their face when the Gators, like there was a dude who literally and this is because we're all Tennessee all the time here on this very program, Brian.
Of course.
When I was at Tennessee, Florida last year, this there was this guy a Gator fan brought a blown up Florida Gate, like just Gator, and was just whenever because Florida started okay and was like really hyped and like smacking Tennessee fans with the inflatable Gator. And it was very annoying. And I couldn't say anything because I'm like, Florida just kind of owns Tennessee at this point. And I'm like, I'm not going to get all hyped if Tennessee is doing okay in the second quarter where I'm like, there's still a lot of time for Tennessee to blow this in excruciating fashion. So I'm just going to let the Florida fans have fun for a while. And when Tennessee went up, I think after the Jabari Small touchdown where they're up 3 scores, some Tennessee fan like screamed at this dude and like looked him in the eye and pulled out like a knife or something and like stabbed and like deflated the Gator.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that's part of the appeal. You need both.
Yeah, you got to get there
back and forth.
It's funny you brought up Florida because I was gonna say like I've taught them, you know, that like you obviously, you know, you find that line. But I have also made sure that both my children do know that anything involving the Florida Gators, there is no limit, and if anything, go harder. So
yes, yeah, I 100% agree on that front. Last thing in Milwaukee, a couple of different players who spent some time with the ads. Luke Evangelista, who we talked about a lot, with Gross, with Sherwood, with Jankowski, McCarron. We talked about Tomasino too. Who did you want to? Is there anyone in particular that you wanted to kind of spotlight their season in the AHL, or anyone in particular?
Yeah, I mean, so there's some guys in here that I mean, really. We talk about them a lot, but there's a good reason why we talk about them. And I think the biggest trio is, you know, is Kiefer Sherwood, Luke Evangelista, and Jordan Gross. I mean, these guys they lead the team in points. Evangelista leads the team in goals and points in the playoffs with 4 goals, 7 assists. So 11 points. I think, let me double check real quick because I had to hand track this. So 7 of his 11 points are primary points. So that's 4 goals and 3 primary assists. So he also leads with 4 points on the power play, which also he's tied with Jordan Gross and Kiefer Sherwood. But together, I mean, they've had just a tremendous run. And these are guys that their NHL time has made a huge difference. And again, I remember, you know, during development camp this year, it's saying that, you know, Evangelista was just kind of on another level compared to every other player that was there. Like he was the most NHL ready. He felt like he was skating at another gear that the other guys didn't have. And he's proved that. I mean, he's been everywhere. And Kiefer Sherwood, he was out for the last couple games. I think he had an upper body injury. But he has come back and has been just tremendous. I mean, he's still scrappy and literally flying all over the ice, making contact with people and scoring and being really dangerous. So those three guys are players that, like, if there's anybody on this team right now that is 100% like deserves to spend the entirety of next season in Nashville, it's those three. But you see, there's been a little bit of disappointing performances. Tomasino has not had a great playoffs, only has 2 points in 9 games. Jankowski, 1 goal, 2 assists. Michael McCarron, 1 goal and 2 assists, which I'm going to caveat that one because, McCarron is coming back he had a stint in the player assistance program this season and returned to Milwaukee for kind of like to get him back into hockey shape and everything like that. And he's been doing a tremendous job with them. And his presence, despite just 3 points, like his presence has been definitely noticed. He's had a ridiculous face-off percentage, especially in this series against Texas. And, going through what he went through personally is tough. It's really tough. And for him to come back and kind of fit back in there and really kind of take a leadership role with the Admirals has been really, really great to see. And it's good to see. A couple of guys that aren't, I'm going to say they haven't spent time with Nashville this season, but are in the system. Anthony Angelo is a player that he's got a point in this playoff, but he leads the playoffs right now and has led the playoffs since the end of the first round in penalty minutes with 28. He is sitting at a -2 overall for the season. So he has been a little bit of a liability, and I try not to criticize AHL players in the same way that I do when I evaluate NHL players, just because it's a different stage in development. But this is a guy he came in to be big, and he's been big, but he's not really offering much of the benefits of having that other than just keeping physical. And he's been probably one of the only players I think that we've seen where it's just been, unfortunately, like it probably is time to bring in another guy. Isaac Ratcliffe and Isaac Rushoff, Austin Rushoff, guys that came over in trades. They have been huge. Ratcliffe he's got what, two goals and an assist in 3 games, I believe. Since his first 2 games in the playoffs. So 3 points in 2 games. He came over from the Vegas system. And he's been an absolute steal. So he's been really great. And then of course, Joachim Kamel, which the man has come over, and I think I even hedged my bets when he came over, saying he'll definitely play, but I don't see him blowing things up. No,
do you think he makes NHL next year?
I think he'll get some time. I'm not sure if it's going to be burn a year of his ELC by playing more than playing 10-11 games. But so he came over. As soon as his season was over overseas, he came over to Milwaukee. He's played 21 games, so 14 regular season, 7 playoff. In that time, he has 9 goals and 17 points, so just under a point per game thing. In 7 playoff games, 3 goals and 1 assist. So he has been really fun to watch, and there's not been very much of a transition as far as like him kind of getting adjusted to the game and things like that. If there was, there was a lot of it a little bit in the regular season, but the playoffs have come and he has really been a force to reckon with. And I'd really like to see him get worked up into the lineup a little bit more, because right now he's playing with Rushoff, I think, and I think he would do really well to be as a threat, especially with a guy like Luke Evangelista out there who can really great, puck, creator with the puck. And so I think that could be something great. But his shot, every time I see it, it's like the first time, just like, man, the man's got a rocket on it. So I don't think he's done in this playoffs. I really don't think he's done.
I like it. Well, we can end on this. You know who is done?
Oof.
Kyle Dubas. In Toronto. We wondered if that was going to be the case with just certain important guys. You threw out Austin Matthews back to Phoenix or wherever the Coyotes are playing hockey by that point in time. I think the Coyotes are just like the Arrested Development Tobias Funke of NHL, where it's like it didn't work like the votes and everything else, where it's like it didn't work for them, but it might work for us. So they do this cross, like that poll they threw out where it's like, where would y'all like to see? And I'm like, what? Are you starting from scratch all over again? Or are you just going to keep doing this for 40 years? And then all the Atlanta fans were super pissed, and rightfully so, because they're like, we didn't get this many hoops with Atlanta Spirit to kind of fight to keep the Thrashers in Atlanta for very long. It was pretty quick. Like the fight to keep the Coyotes in the state of Arizona is pretty pretty wild. But maybe that's where he goes. Maybe that's Kyle Dubas' next spot is in Arizona with Austin Matthews. I don't know. What do you make of the Wonder Kid from years ago and kind of the machine that he did build in Toronto that obviously did not have the kind of results that he or any Maple Leaf fan would have preferred. But what will you remember most about his timeline in Toronto? And do you think he's still one of the elite general managers in the sport?
Well, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, he was hired as their general manager at 32 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's been I think his record is 221, 109, and 42.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, pretty good regular season numbers. Obviously, you look and you see the playoffs, but he was a guy that a lot of people, for one, there's a lot of reasons the criticism against him, unless he was a big analytics guy, so he kind of became a target for the people who don't believe in that stuff. But then, he's it's like when you're the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, you're the head coach, or you're the manager of the New York Yankees. I mean, that's what that is, and that's him. He's got the Toronto Maple Leafs, and despite bringing in so many big players and assembling the roster that they have, which again is a very talented and very good roster, it's just they haven't been able to put that together. And I think it's one of those cases where there are a lot of cases in sports, and we all tend to do this. You and I are not excluded from that, where, you kind of put everything into, okay, this guy needs to be fired. He's very bad for all of these reasons. Here's why. Or this guy is so much better, so we need to. It's kind of it's a spectrum, but it's 2 points. It's a really bad. But Dubas was fine, but he was fine for long enough that it wasn't producing the results that they did. And so it's not as much, I think, an indication on his performance as a whole, as much as it's going well. The contract, we're not going to renew the contract. So his contract expires on June 30th, like David Poyle's. And they just said, yeah, we're not going to renew it. So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily see this as a scathing indictment, despite them, getting knocked out of the second round. But it's something. I mean, he's not done in the NHL, obviously. Even if the NHL wasn't as, the coaching tree is a wreath in the NHL, I don't think he's going to be done, by a long shot.
Is there an obvious fit? Like, is there an opening right now, or someone who would not have had an opening, but then Kyle comes on the board? Because I don't think a lot of folks thought he was not gonna stick around in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, so there's the Calgary situation, which I'm not sure which direction they're going to be going with that, but I do know that they did go and brought some out of town interviews in, and they brought in Stan Bowman, which Calgary, Flames might be an apt name for the state of that franchise if they go and hire Stan Bowman, coming off of running Chicago into the ground, overseeing and being a huge part of that case with Kyle Beach there. So
Quinville obviously would probably come with him, right?
I don't know, but it's only a matter of time before that happens too.
Yeah.
And so it's not great, but I think Calgary is down to their final four, I believe. I think Elliot Friedman mentioned that, and so I don't think he'd be a fit there. It's I don't know, to be honest. I mean, part of me is very glad that this happened. Before the announcement with Poyle and everything like that. It didn't happen then, because it's been brought up before, that'd be certainly an interesting option, but obviously we now know that's not the case. And so it's going to be very curious to see what he does, but it's going to be kind of which other team is going to be willing to, want to invest in a younger guy like this, and say, because your guy comes in like this, as opposed to a Barry Trotz, and like, if he could have the same mindset right now as David Poyle is, I'm not going to stop until we get a Stanley Cup. And you can be like, well, that could be 20 years from now, but he's a guy that can stay in place, and let's do that. It's, it's not guys at the end of their run, or, up there in years. So it's kind of like, well, how much longer do you think they have left in the tank? He's going to be there, and he's going to want to be aggressive. And I don't hate the moves that he made. I don't, hate him as a general manager. There's a lot worse options out there. So I think it's not going to be long, but it'll be interesting to see, a team from maybe a big US team tries to pull him in. That'd be interesting. But yeah, it's been a little bit of a mess too with I think the president said that he, up until their like end of season like press conference, he said that he was much closer to leaning into like bringing him back. But then after that, he said he changed his mind, which is a very weird thing to say in public about this, that like something magically clicked at that point. Because I mean, obviously he's probably lying, but you know, it's just a weird way to kind of throw the team into a little bit of turmoil. So if it's a circus, you know, you hate to see that for organization, but it will be very entertaining for those of us outside of Toronto.
For sure. I think he's going to be back sooner rather than later. He's 37, still one of the premier GMs, I think, in this sport and minds. And he could just hide out for a little bit, take a year off and just see what the landscape looks like next off season, build some connections, see where things are going with certain franchises and go from there. So I think he will not have any trouble getting work when Kyle Dubas is ready to start working as a GM again. And he deserves it. I think he's still one of the better, top 5, top 10 GMs in the league.
Something like that. Yeah. Here's the hoping that 37 is not your peak, right?
No. Yeah, let's hope not. Goodness gracious. Bryan Bastin, what can the folks check out from you and the team over at ontheforecheck.com this week?
Oh, the draft is coming. I submitted our I got registered with the NHL for this offseason to request credentials for my team. So we're going to find out about the NHL awards and the NHL draft, which is going to be a very insane week for me personally there at the end of June. I'm probably going to do all the Nashville things with people that are coming into town. Like I'm going to make them all go buy one, get 2 free boots. We'll probably do a pedal tavern, take them to Coyote Ugly.
You're going full tourist Nashville.
Yeah. I mean, I think I want them to know what it's like. I want them to know my pain when I'm leaving. When we have a matinee game at 11 o'clock at Bridgestone Arena, and I'm getting out of the arena at like 4 on a Saturday, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be here right now. I want them to know it's fun. It really is fun. I can't say. I mean, it is.
You're actually laughing. You're having a great time.
I'm having a great time, and I'm going to have a really great time watching these people do these things because they're going to be like, oh, this isn't that bad, and then we'll see afterwards, because the Bachelorette virus gets us all at times. We can't help it. Sometimes you just got to woo.
That is definitely a possibility. So there you go. Well, that's fun. Nashville, and Bryan's going to have some stories for you. This is going to be good. Next month is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm going to have a lot of stories. I will say this, though. Another thing, a little bit outside of about hockey. Big thing I'm a huge supporter of, huge fan of, and I think it hasn't been talked about at all, really, online or in the world. The new Legend of Zelda game rules. Go get it if you have any doubt at all about whether you should. No, it's good. Right now, honestly, I've thought about it like 10 times during this podcast, Chase. It's that good. So if you get some time out there, go get it, because it's really fun.
There you go. I like it.
Yeah, letting y'all know how big of a nerd I am, but man, that game is fun. And I don't play video games like for long periods of time anymore. I can't do it. I can't do and sit down and play like, Halo and stuff all night anymore.
Yeah, we're washed.
No, I could do this with Zelda if I could I'm considering taking off work,
It's that good. I like it.
It's very fun.
Bryan Bastin, thank you as always. And I will talk to you next week.
Well done, nephew. Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.